One thing that really changed everything for me was psilocybin.
Ted Dhanik,
an American business executive,
founding member of Myspace,
CEO and founder of Engage BDR.
I read all this stuff about new neural network connections and pathways in your brain. While you're on psilocybin, it's like doing complex math. And so I said, wow, this is really incredible stuff. And you feel great.
you've taken 2 companies public. You speak about it like it's not a big deal.
If you're around a table of winners, you're gonna wanna win. They have this energy. They just keep winning. And that winning energy is infectious.
The way that you broke it down was like you're pretty much building another company. It's still entrepreneurship.
It's solving a problem, but the reality of it is my...
So when you say winning by osmosis, what is that?
So winning by osmosis is a story of how I got to where I am. Only thing that brings me real fulfillment is helping others grow. The problem with validation is it leads to narcissism. And then I created a technology at Myspace to help Myspace monetize its ad inventory better because it had 7 billion ads a day. Everyone is kind of in the places they are at, not by accident. It's by decisions that they've made. You need to be around people that are constantly winning. You need to respect yourself consciously, subconsciously, mentally, physically, spiritually. I want to inspire personal growth. And the way to do that is promote credibility, not validation.
Kicking Ass, Taking Names podcast, and today we are here with a very special guest. This guy is fundamental in literally the space of the internet, guys. So we're here with Ted Dhanik, Ted Skilla. Thank you so much, brother, for being here.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Dude, I mean, so for those who don't know who Ted is, I'm going to tell you right now, if you've ever heard of Myspace, a little thing called Myspace before Facebook, he pretty much was on the founding team. What were you, like number 2, number 3?
It's one of the early guys.
Early guys, you know, so him, Tom, they worked together, Myspace Tom. Then after that, he went into building what was it, like your Lower My Bills?
Lower My Bills was before Myspace, but after Myspace, we had an ad exchange that we took public.
And that was the Engage BDR.
Yep.
So then he had Engage BDR, took 2 companies public. Currently writing a book. Is your book out yet?
Should be out soon.
Soon?
Winning by Osmosis.
Okay, so Winning by Osmosis, which I really want to read because that's all like this guy's about. I mean, it's you guys are going to see a really great episode, so stay tuned to the end. And so, guys, Ted Dhanik. All right, so Ted, first off, again, thank you so much for being here. I know that it's it's always hectic with traffic in LA, but we're here. And the first question I want to ask you, brother, is, okay, so everybody knows you from your story starting off with Myspace, but let's start like before that. You know, how you're involved in the startup world. You're you moved to San Francisco early on. I mean, what's that story like? And just give us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I was born in India, and it was, at the time, it was called Bombay. Currently, it's called Mumbai, so I still say Bombay. But I was born in India, and then my parents actually have been living in the U.S. for over 50 years. But my mom went back to deliver me. She wanted to be with her family during that time. So I came back here really young, like 28 days old. Mm-hmm. And where I ended up initially was Texas, because that's where my parents were living before I was born. So I lived in Houston for my first 9 years. During that time, I faced a lot of challenges, but it was great. I love everything that happened to me, but it was a pretty racist environment. You know, I lived in Houston, Texas, and this was in the 80s and 70s and 80s. And that's where I learned how to fight.
Yeah.
And so I actually changed my name too. So my name is actually Tej with a J. It's just one letter different. And I'm going back to my real name at the launch of my book, which is due very soon. But yeah, so I had to change my name because kids were super racist. They didn't like Indians. Mm-hmm. And, my name they were calling me all kinds of stuff, and I get into fights, and it was kind of crazy. But anyways, shortly after, we moved around the country, ended up in New York, New Jersey, and San Diego. And then my dad got a better job in the Bay Area. So I spent my adolescent years in Silicon Valley. And luckily, I ended up in the exact era where the dot-com boom happened. Mm-hmm. It was in my neighborhood, basically, Silicon Valley. So I was going to college and working for startups, for tech companies at the same time. My first job was, my first job related to my career was selling in a call center. So it's kind of funny because I'm Indian and, you have Indians in call centers, but this is, a little different. So I was selling software in a call center and I got really good really fast, and I grew, and I got another job and another job after that. And shortly after ended up in a really high level business development position for another startup .com company. And then that was just my career. I was a business development guy, and I created a niche for myself. I ended up being, before I left the Silicon Valley, one of 5 people in the country that had the expertise I had in this specific kind of business development. So I ended up building a consumer lending product at a company called Lower My Bills, which was the consumer finance, refinance, and home purchase lead business. We were selling it to all the mortgage banks. It did really well. Lower My Bills was why I moved to LA, basically, from Silicon Valley. I was one of the original guys there. We sold the company to Experian, and that was a really great business. Brought it from basically no revenue to over $1 million a day in revenue during that time, and then met Tom along the way, and ended up joining Myspace at its inception. So it's a lot of fun, and my role at Myspace was completely different. My title was VP of Fun, which was I did anything fun and everything fun. It's all marketing stuff, and it was totally different because it came from a business development sales background, ended up in marketing. I had a marketing degree, surprisingly, but completely irrelevant to what I did. And then shortly after that, we sold Myspace in 18 months, and then we had an earnout, which ended in 2008. That's when Tom and I left, and several other people left. And then I created a technology with the blessing of management at Myspace to help Myspace monetize its ad inventory better, because it had 7 billion ads a day that were going under monetized. So I created this technology. Within the first month of our launch, we were a profitable company.
Wow.
It was really incredible. And then that was Engage BDR. And then we grew it, did several $100 million in revenue before we took it public, and did an IPO. It never raised a dollar of outside capital, no debt, no equity, nothing until the IPO. And then during the time that we ended up public, I raised about $80 million of public equity.
So going into, because I didn't know that MySpace was sold in 18 months from inception.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what's the, I know there's so much more to your story,
Sure.
but just getting started early on, meeting Tom, how did you get involved particularly with this? I feel like a lot of people don't really know the story behind MySpace, right? Like you hear about it, but
yeah, the story's simple, there's like a lot of behind the scenes stuff that there was a lot of drama. There was a publicly traded parent company involved in MySpace as well in the beginning. And that caused a lot of challenges for us, and the sale as well too. We didn't want to sell. Mm-hmm. We wanted to sell to Viacom. Ended up being News Corp, which destroyed MySpace subsequently. Essentially, we just wanted to be, independent and make our own decisions, but we got hijacked early on. And, unfortunately that was just part of it. But the story, what Tom's role at a previous company, the company before MySpace, was a product role. He was kind of in charge of building products and a variety of different products and stuff, right? And he was not a developer. His idea was, hey, Friendster was the first social network that's out there. Let's go after Friendster, but let's make it a little bit more sexier, because he had been familiar with Match at the time. There was Match and a couple other dating sites out there, and they were kind of taboo. So let's create something that's less taboo, kind of a dating platform, and that's what MySpace is. That's what it was originally, initially, and then the music component came about because MySpace Tom was, just call him Tom at this point. Tom was a musician. Mm-hmm. He had been in a bunch of indie bands, and he had this passion for music. So that's where MySpace Music's genesis came from. And we had a record label as well with Interscope, and it was fun. We were signing indie artists. We had all kinds of musicians in the office all the time. Everyone came to our office, from Pharrell to 50 Cent. I worked with everyone, and I even worked with Diddy. Yeah. I did the Danity Kane tours. We did 100 stops around the country, 100 different dates, and we're all over the country with actually other countries as well, with Danity Kane when that came out, when Diddy thought that was his biggest project at one point. So I had a lot of exposure to him, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Over the years, yeah.
Yeah. So now, okay, so you were settled in. When did you move to LA?
In the year 2000.
And then what prompted that move?
Yeah, it was a startup that brought me out here. And actually, sincerely, it was a breakup. You know, I had a breakup, and it was a really bad one. And
Just went through one 3 weeks ago.
I just went through one 4 months ago. I'm still going through it.
Yeah.
You know, it's never ending. You know.
Yeah.
And it's everyone I'm talking to is going through a breakup. It's the weirdest time right now. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's so strange. But yeah, so that breakup brought me to LA. I needed to get out of the Bay Area, San Francisco, because we had so many mutual friends.
Yeah, you just can't get
just
escape.
memories. It was too hard. And
I saw you
know,
posted about that too. You're
the
like
recent one.
Yeah,
The recent one I posted about.
You posted
it,
about it, and you said something about like your mental space and
yeah. So I'm a big proponent of inner work, and I think it's a lifestyle rather than a healing. You know, more of a healing modality, and the concept of healing is permanent, not project based. So it's kind of like you always need to be woke. You know, working on inner self rather than, hey, I just went through a breakup, I have to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And that implies that you're going to be healed at one certain point, but
Right.
you're not, because there's constant change. And so we need to always focus on that. And it's just a part of my lifestyle. I have a bunch of things that I do, and they're effective, but I'm always interested and open and learning about new stuff, you know?
So you were recently, going on this topic, and then I want to circle back in a bit, but you were recently talking about like a validation vortex.
Sure.
I really wanted to ask you, this is one of the questions I want to make sure I get and ask you before we go. So what is that?
So the validation vortex is something that I'd been sucked into, and I don't think I was from a degree of, for the full spectrum of people that are in it. I think I was like closer to the middle somewhere, not on the far right side where, it's pretty apparent, most people are doing stuff a lot that you just see that, why are you doing these things? It's just everything you're doing is for validation. It wasn't that bad, but I realized that a lot of things that we do, and I started noticing it in people. A few things, social media is a pretty good indicator of it. The problem with validation is it leads to narcissism. So you have to be really careful.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is when people start getting validated quite a bit, in the beginning, it's fine, it's great, it helps their confidence. And then eventually it turns into, these people are narcissists. They think that they're a key cog or a component in this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really not. It's just everything they're doing has been kind of strategic to get the validation. So it's things like going to specific restaurants and tagging them. It's being around specific people, going to specific places and tagging it. It's buying certain types of things like cars and certain kind of clothes, and it's just kind of everything, And so I realized I was in this vortex, and this is like a several year kind of process for me to come out of it. But about a year and a half ago, I stopped tagging restaurants. I would just, post the food, and because that's what I really care about is the food, not really the restaurant. I don't need a restaurant to validate me,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be associated with a restaurant to be cool, that kind of thing. But in places like LA and New York, and it's a big problem, because people live their lives, and then you start thinking, where am I going today? Who am I going to be with? What am I going to wear? What am I driving? All of this stuff ends up being part of the validation vortex. And then I got really sick at one point. It was, I think it was in early February, and I was gone for like 2 weeks, and I stopped everything. I disappeared for 2 weeks, basically. I stopped posting anything or whatever. And I just took a look at everything from the outside. And I realized that, hey, a lot of the stuff I was doing was based on subconscious requirements for validation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stopped completely, and I just stopped. I said, I'm not going to, the only thing I'm going to post, there's a checklist for me. If I'm going to post something, it has to have value. It has to add value to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something for me. And then also part of that checklist is there anything in this, whatever I'm posting, this content, that could be perceived as ostentatious or arrogant or egotistical, or am I showing materialism, or I don't want to see the thing as like people can be they can be fine with that kind of stuff. I don't want to be. I'm in a position of influence. I do not want to be inspiring people to be this way. I want to inspire personal growth, and the way to do that is promote credibility, not validation. And credibility is a form of validation. And, there's a post on my page about the validation vortex. And the first comment I pinned was from my best friend, Myspace Tom. And he says, "Hey, brother, isn't credibility," he calls me out, "isn't credibility a form of validation?" And I told him, I said, "Yeah, but I'd rather be on that side of it than the other side, which I think validation is, there's no real value to anyone else, but credibility actually requires you to be some sort, have some sort of value to others than yourself, and that you can gain some permanent credibility if you build something, so.
I think it's really interesting you say that, because if you think about your career, you've taken 2 companies public.
Sure.
You speak about it like it's not a big deal.
Well, I'm around this is the whole thing about the winner's circle and winning by osmosis, my book. It's because I've been really good at one thing. It's creating winner circles. And so I'm always the smallest guy in the group. And I've done some things, but the guys around me I'm like an ant. And these guys are, like they've done some real shit, and these are the guys that inspire me, and they're the ones who I get my ideas from. At the end of the day, it really is about inner peace and fulfillment from, what you feel, what brings you fulfillment. Business is fine. And I think people obviously need to make a living, but at the end of it, like when you get to a certain stage, you start realizing that the only thing that brings me real fulfillment is helping others grow or elevate, or, bringing some sort of value to their lives that didn't exist. It could touch a lot of people that way. I'm not talking about philanthropy. I'm talking about real stuff, like the stuff we do with psilocybin. And, I have a lot of friends. I've been really blessed and honored, actually. I've had a lot of people close to me have come to me for help. They've been in really bad depression cycles and spirals, and they've been suicidal, and so many different people.
When you say that, though, the people that you're around, you say you're the smallest in the room. So all these people who are struggling are like
there's so many people,
like mega successful, mega yacht,
and people are, it's not even about that stuff, but a lot of my friends who are successful or we don't say, we're not talking about wealth, we're talking about accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of friends who are best-selling New York Times authors, and they're very accomplished, right? And they're successful, but they're not on yachts and all this other stuff. It's a different category of success, different kind of, wealth, totally different, or, they don't make as much money as some of these other guys do, but they're people that you probably want to be around more than the others, that kind of thing. So I have a full spectrum of friends, and I have a really wide, close inner circle. It's like 50 to 75 people. It's not 5 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's a big part of it's a big part of my core values to have deep cultivated relationships with lots of people, including new people. So I'm always building relationships that have a lot of depth, and new ones too.
So how does this tie into what you're doing currently? Sante,
Sure.
Microdosing. I mean, a lot of people talk about microdosing, and what's that all about?
The relation to microdosing and me, I am not, I didn't really want to be in that space. It wasn't my passion to have that kind of a business, but I do have a biodynamic supplement business called Sante. It's been around for about 7 years. AU-SANTE.com, and it's got a variety of different supplements that we formulated ourselves, my business partner and I, and it's stuff that we have needed. Like sleep is a big problem for people, and so we have a sleep supplement that everyone loves, and we have lots of really interesting people that were hooked on Ambien and Xanax, and we got them to kick it 20-year addictions with my sleep product, and it's fantastic, so stuff like that. It's been really good. So a couple of years, I would say like 3.5 years ago, I discovered psilocybin, and it was a friend of mine who really successful tech entrepreneur, and he's done some really, really incredible things, and he keeps impressing us. He just has so many different new businesses coming out all the time. But he sent me some science, and he said, hey, you know what? Everything that I have learned, everything that I've come up with, all these ideas over the last 15 years have come from psilocybin. And when he said that to me, I was really surprised. I said, wow, that's interesting, but I don't do drugs, dude. So I'm not going to do it because I've never done any drugs recreationally. I don't even drink alcohol,
Yeah.
I don't have any alcohol.
And you're 48.
I'm 48. I haven't had a drop of
Crazy.
alcohol in 5 years, and I'll never have it for the rest of my life. I just don't think it's good for us, and I never had a drinking issue or anything like that. I don't even have caffeine other than what's in an Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
That's about it. So I'm very sensitive to all these substances. And so I said, no, I will not do drugs. And so he sent me a bunch of science, and he said, read this. What do you think of this? You're a smart guy. You're not ignorant. And so I read all this stuff about spawning neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, new neural network connections and pathways in your brain. While you're on psilocybin, it's like reading, it's like doing complex math or learning a new language. And so I said, wow, this is really incredible stuff. And you feel great. And there's no side effects to it, So I said, okay, I have to try it. So I started going down this rabbit hole of trying everyone's products. And I realized they were very inconsistent. You feel different every time.
Mm.
So I got to the guys who own the companies and said, hey, why do you feel this way? And they said, well, we use different strains all the time because we get different deals. So I said, what is a strain? So I went down this rabbit hole of understanding spores and strains. And I realized that, hey, you could have an albino penis envy, which is a very specific kind of mushroom here. You could have it that was cultivated in West Hollywood. You could take one that was cultivated in Brazil or Japan or anywhere else in this world, as long as it's the same strain, and you'll have the exact same outcome. The efficacy might be a little bit different, but you'll feel the same, which is incredible because it's very different than weed, Weed strains are totally different than that. So then I said, okay, so let me understand the strains. So I started going down the road of strains and understanding what different strains are there and what kind of effects do they create. And then I learned there's a workout strain called Be Positive that makes you really want to work out. There's, some basic strains like Golden Teacher and Titanic, and there's so many of them. Anyways, so then we started creating products. I said, I have to create a product now because these guys are failing. This is the one place where people have complaints about. They don't know how they're going to feel. I should be able to tell them, and this is how you're going to feel. And the dosage has to get the dosing right? So anyway, so I created a product and several products, and we make them here locally, and they're organic and vegan, and they're really great, and people love them. And so that was a passion project. And so we've treated all kinds of stuff. People have come to me with kratom addictions that were suicidal. People have come to me with alcohol addictions that were suicidal. My assistant was in a really bad place 3.5 years ago. He was borderline suicidal, and he was drinking, So I got him off that. I got him on psilocybin. He's a different dude now today. Got people off, and I have this protocol for people, for SSRIs, people that are on antidepressants. I have a protocol for that. We have created capsules for that, for microdosing, and to get them off of SSRIs. I've gotten several public figures off of SSRIs, and they're completely different people now. And it's really incredible because, antidepressants are not so great for you. And they're highly addictive, and the withdrawal is insane, Mm-hmm. All kinds of stuff. Opiate addictions too, big problems. Anyways, my path was not really I wasn't trying to be treating addiction. It was not my thing, but the root is the addiction. The collateral thing is their depression and their, suicidal tendency. That's a thing, And so to deal with that, you got to deal with the root. So I've had a lot of friends come to me that were spiraling in depression and all kinds of problems. So the psilocybin's helped a lot. And then other modalities, I have a lot of content on my Instagram about ketamine therapies. So I went down that road, and I've done a bunch of them, and I think they've yielded profound results for me and several people that I've recommended them to, and saved a bunch of people's lives, that I recommended them to. I mean, it'll flip you 180 degrees real fast,
It's so interesting that you say it, because the way that you broke it down was like you're pretty much building another company. It's still entrepreneurship.
It is.
It's
And
solving a problem.
it's solving a problem, but the reality of it is my mantra is consistent in this and anything else. It's, hey, I want to build as much value in as I can without expecting much in return. So I want to build enough as much value to any partnership, customer, client, relationship, friendship, any type of relationship, as much value as I can without expecting a lot in return. And eventually, if you do well, you will be valuable, And when you become valuable, that's when that's when there's an opportunity, a commercial opportunity. But until then, it's like, hey, can we add as much value? And if we live like that, our fulfillment will always be there, because we're doing everything we can to be adding as much value to people's lives. At the end of the day, that's where the only real fulfillment comes from. It's not from doing anything for ourselves.
So when you say winning by osmosis, right?
Sure.
What is that, the thesis for that?
So winning by osmosis is a lot of it is a story of how I got to where I am and where I'm going to be. So essentially, I've been really good at creating winner circles, and a lot of it came from Tony Robbins early on. I've been reading self-help since I was a kid. And, say, hey, if you want to learn how to do something, this is the basic fundamental principle. Whatever you want to learn how to do, someone's done it already, and you got to find them and they'll teach you. Add enough value to their lives and they'll teach you, right? It's the end of the day. And now a modern day example of that is, forget about learning how to do certain things that you want to replicate. All the other stuff that comes from these people that have been successful at doing things, they have this energy. They just keep winning. They have this winner energy, right? The winning energy. And that winning energy is infectious. Even if you're around a table of winners, you're going to want to win. And so I believe in that. You need to be around people that are constantly winning. And there's a lot of consistencies with winners. One is they're contributors. So you don't have people that are energy vampires and stuff in winning circles. You just don't have that. I don't have that around me. I don't even really understand how that works, because people are always talking about, oh, these people are, they're energy vampires and things like that. And I just I don't have the tolerance for that. If someone is not a contributor, because I'm constantly adding value to anyone's life that's around me, they're just not there. There's no conversation. They're just gone, completely out. Because the time is the only currency you actually have, and you can't get it back. It's the only non-replenishable currency. Everything else can be replenished except for time. So winning by osmosis was, the osmosis of winners is infectious, and you cannot be in a winning circle without cleansing your undertones of negative energy. What that means is you have these people around that they call energy vampires. If they're in your spectrum, they're still around somewhere. They're just there. You're talking to them once in a while. They need to be gone from you will have that undertone of energy, and you're not attractive to winners. Because winners you're subconsciously attracting these people too. So you can feel it and sense it. I can tell you who's a winner or not really fast just by being around them for a few minutes. And so that's a big part of it. And then, creating the winner circle is, how do you attract the winners? So I'm basically teaching people how to clean up the undertones of their energy, how to attract the winners, how to build the circles, there's so much parts of it, but mindset is a big part of it. Instead of saying, hey, change your mindset, I'm going to tell you how to do it. And a big part of it is, let's talk about what it takes to change mindset. A winner's mindset means that you believe that you are winning. If you believe that you are winning, you also believe in self-respect. And self-respect and self-esteem, a big part of it. You cannot have that if you don't respect yourself. You need to respect yourself consciously, subconsciously, mentally, physically, spiritually. And so all of these aspects you need to work on, you need to do. So fitness is a big part of it. Fitness, spirituality. I talk about meditation. I'm a big proponent of transcendental meditation, TM. I've been practicing for years. It's really transformative, and it's changed my life. People say, hey, you're the calmest person I've ever met. I'm like this on stages. If you've ever seen me speak on a stage, I'm just there, super calm. But anyways, so spirituality really key. Working on inner self. There's so much that's part of it, but meditation's a big, fundamental, foundational aspect. Physical fitness, wellness is very different than fitness, and health. So those three things are independent, but you need to be strong in those areas. And then self-respect comes. And when self-respect comes, mindset changes. And the mindset is, hey, you believe that you are winning because what I've just done for you is I've compartmentalized your life. Health, wellness, fitness, spirituality. Those are really key. Those are the fundamental pillars of self-respect. And if you can win in those 4 departments, you'll have daily wins in each one of those. And all of a sudden you're winning. And now you're winning, even if you're not financially winning or if you're not professionally winning in your career's not where it needs to be. But life isn't about that, is it? Life is about living. And if you have those 4 pillars firing the way they need to, you're going to realize that life is a lot more interesting than just business, and it's not about business. So get all that stuff going, and then now you have self-respect and your self-esteem, and you can attract people. People want to be around people that like each other. And by the way, there's things like really important things like sleep I talk about too, because people that don't sleep well, a lot of times they don't respect themselves. That's a big thing. When I talk to people, I want to understand what their habits are, what they do. I can say, hey, this person, their core values are aligned with mine, or maybe they're not, and they have some habits that don't really fit. So I don't think I'm going to be a really good friend for them, or they're not going to be a good friend for me, and I don't want to absorb the osmosis of their bad habits. Because by the way, osmosis goes both ways. You can have winning osmosis and you have losing osmosis. And there's certain things about people, the worst characteristics you may adopt and the best ones you may adopt. So you got to be careful. Osmosis is powerful. So there's a lot there. So that's one book. And then there's another book I'm working on for the end of the year, it's called The Microdosing Guide, How to Dose Out of Any Situation. It's completely irrelevant to the first one, but it really is interesting and important because a lot of people have anxiety and, they have a lot of these things. They're on Adderall and there's just a lot going on. And they microdosed daily, or at least 4 days a week. All that stuff would change for them pretty quickly. So,
okay. So you've created, what people would say is traditionally success, right? Like, taking 2 companies public, made a lot of money, things that you're saying as like, okay, these are surface level, but really what matters is what's inside. But you also talk about in your past, you identified your business success with your self-worth.
Sure.
After that, you said that when you were doing well in business, you felt great. When you're doing poorly in business, you were doing, you felt like crap.
Sure.
I want to know, with the world the way that it is today, would you consider it an epidemic? And if so, like, do you think that the premise of this is because of what you're speaking about? How do you relate with what you're doing to your purpose? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think a big part of it for me was, yes, when I took the company public, the last company public, when I say public, I meant IPO, and it's on the stock exchange, initial public offering, it was trading. The shares were trading on a stock exchange, right? So that was a really interesting and kind of insane experience, because running a public company, I was chairman, CEO, founder, and I was on other public company boards at the same time too. So I'm like fully exposed in this world of SOX compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley, and audits, and a lot of stuff. And they're writing about me every day in the media and public. My private life is out there too, so it was a lot. It was pretty insane. And then you have articles coming out about you. This guy's driving around, CEO of this company, driving around in $2 million Bugatti. And it's and the next, he's overpaid. Here's the proof. There's no reason for him to do that. And he lives in Hollywood. Or I don't live in Hollywood, but they say that, and this guy, and he's dating celebrities, and at the time I was, whatever, So this guy's way too overpaid. His lifestyle, he's a lifestyle CEO. And they said that, and it's not true. I've been like this for like fucking 25 years, It's pretty insane. So, but outside of that, I realized that, and then they started smashing my stock when this stuff would come out. They short me. It was all collaborated, strategic shorting. You know, they paid journalists to do this, and they short it the next day. You know, it's just, yeah, it was wild. And I was experiencing that, and it was pretty insane. So I'd be in a corner, like transforming, you know, really high stress. I'd lose millions of dollars every time that happens.
How did you manage that stress?
I was the largest shareholder. So there's a few things that I did to manage the stress. So I didn't manage it well, you know, for a long time. And I ended up in a situation where I was transforming, you know, and I was just spiraling, and I was depressed, and I was becoming skinny fat, and, you know, it was just bad, you know, it was just turning into, and I realized I was like 41 at the time, or 40. And I realized, I can't live like this. I can't go on like this. It's too much. So I had a breakdown. It wasn't like an emotional breakdown. It was just like a realization. And I realized that, you know, then I had people around me that were really smart, but I realized that I needed to focus on my health, because I started paying attention to other people around me that didn't have their health. And I realized that I do have my health still. And I learned pretty quickly that you cannot buy your health back later on when you're done working.
So it's like you're winning by osmosis, but in a different way. Like, let me be around the winners that actually are healthy and happy and fulfilled.
Sure. And then I was around people that were winning, but they were losing, and they wouldn't even be phased at all. They just look like they're winning still. Hey, you had a really fucked up quarter. Like, what happened? Whatever, you know, I'm doing great. I'm, you know, mentally sound and spiritually strong. And I didn't understand any of that stuff, you know, because my life purpose was business, you know, at the time. Anyway, so it was this transformation for me, and it took some time to get to the place where there was one solution to all of it, but it took me a time to figure that out. And when I got to that place, I realized that, you know what, you cannot express true gratitude until you arrive at this place. And this place, we all have access to it. Most of us don't know how to get there. And the place is being present. And I'm telling you, that is truly the solution for all of this stuff. Because right now, in this moment, right now, is the real only time we could express true gratitude for everything we really actually have. And I'm not talking about what we're going to have tomorrow, what we had yesterday. It's about what we have right now, you know? And I had to learn how to live in present tense, because I was always surfing between the fear of tomorrow and the regret of yesterday. I was surfing. I was never in present tense. And I learned how to become present, and meditation helped a lot too. But meditation helped so much. But the one thing that really changed everything for me was psilocybin. And that made me truly understand how to be present. Because when you're in that moment, when you're on psilocybin, your time stops. You're here right now, and you realize, wow, you're looking around, you're looking at nature, you're looking at the sky, you're thinking of your family, you're thinking of, you know, your friends, you're thinking of loved ones, you're thinking about everything that actually matters in life, and not the shit that you think and have been programmed to think matters, like business and money and all that stuff. Yeah, you need to live.
So, because I want to, you know, I think we should do another part 2, because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Can you give me like a 2-minute recap of like your best advice to the camera while we, you know, have your...
So one, to get to a place where you can start change, you need to catalog your environment. See who you're around. Just start writing it down. Write down who you're around every day. And I'm not even talking about your closest friends. Write them down too, but everyone that you spend time with. Maybe even try to understand in social media and virtual conversations you have with people, because that is also osmosis. Start writing it down, cataloging these people, figure out how much time you're spending with them. And then also start understanding these people. Start writing down their value in your life, which is, what are they really good at? Like, what are they really fucking good at? Those are the things you want to be really good at, right? If they're not, then you need to start cutting these people. Because I'm telling you, everyone is kind of in the places they are at, not by accident. It's by decisions that they've made. I'm where I am right now because of all the decisions. It's the aggregate of all the decisions I've made, right? And all those decisions, a lot of those decisions have been influenced by people around me. So people that you're around are influencing decisions you're making. In fact, they're not only influencing decisions you're making, they're introducing ideas for new decisions for you. So I would say, like, out of everything that I'm going to talk about, that is number one, catalog your environment, figure out who you're spending your time with, how much of it, and then figure out what these people are really fucking good at. And if they're not good at things that you want to be good at, then you need to get rid of them. Now, I'm not talking about kill them. I'm saying, you need to move them away from your, area, from the osmosis field. You need to stop communicating with them frequently.
Oh.
I think that's number one. And then that's the beginning of understanding how to build a winner's osmosis circle.
With that being said, guys, from a man who's done extremely well, Ted Dhanik, kicking ass, taking names, and stay tuned for his book coming out few months.
Sometime in May.
Okay, sometime in May. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ted.
Thanks.